Hi. It's been a few years since I last spoke to most of you in your freshman health classes. I hope you've been able to turn the difficult personal lessons you've learned during the pandemic into a source of personal growth. This time, I'd like to talk to you about decision making, which is a key skill for those who find themselves in any kind of leadership role. Some decisions are simple, while others can be very difficult. Wrong decisions can bring consequences that you can be forced to live with for a long time. But avoiding decisions can also have undesirable effects as well. So in this video, I'd like to help you make well thought out decisions. Unfortunately, I've seen people in the business world make multi-million-dollar decisions in the hallway that in essence are no more well thought out than a flip of a coin. For the last 20 years, I've helped executives implement a streamlined decision-making process in over 70 companies and government agencies. These fundamental steps are no different for you, yet too few people are aware of them. Some people overthink or are afraid of making the wrong decision. This can waste valuable time and money and upset team members. On the other hand, delaying a decision means additional time for a more thoughtful and extended analysis. New information and alternatives might be recognized or created, or your preferences might change. But are you delaying because you really know the answer is no, but don't want to say no? A key element of this entire process is being honest with yourself and willing to make a mistake, which is how we learn many of our most valuable lessons in life. It helps you avoid making decisions purely based on emotions like fear or jealousy. Speaking of emotions, here are 6 variables that can negatively influence sound decision making. When gathering facts that support certain conclusions but disregard other facts that support different conclusions. Inertia is an unwillingness to change thought patterns that we have used in the past in the face of new circumstances. Wishful thinking or optimism bias is when our desire to see things in a positive light distorts our perception and open-mindedness. Recency is when we tend to place more attention on the latest information and either forget or ignore more distant information. Over-relying on the initial data is termed primacy effect. Repetition bias is a willingness to believe what we have been told most often and by the greatest number of different sources. This is too often an unfortunate consequence of social media. And finally, a self-fulfilling prophecy occurs when you believe something about yourself and are therefore more likely to act in ways that correspond to these beliefs, thus reinforcing these beliefs and encouraging the same continued behavior. This can cause you to ignore important alternatives. I want to encourage you, as future leaders in whatever sphere of society you find yourselves, to make group decisions where possible. People, especially leaders who don't, besides missing vital information and being labeled authoritarian, and are demotivating to their staff, and must spend most time explaining the decision rationale and gaining acceptance. On the other hand, studies show that a group often has critical data, values, feelings, and reactions quite different from those the manager supposes they have. No one knows the group and its tastes and preferences as well as the group itself. And interestingly, by its very nature, group decisions take less time and are more motivating. So here's the process in 9 steps. Keeping in mind that in a typical decision-making situation, as you move from step to step, you'll probably find yourself moving back and forth between the steps as well. First, identify the decision to be made. Also, identify the results that will indicate success. Unfortunately, this is a most ignored step, which is like running a race not knowing where the finish line is. Get all the available facts, recognizing that having all the necessary information for a perfect decision is rare. Develop 2 or more viable alternatives And then, rate how well each alternative meets the success factors. Consider the risk associated with each alternative. There is always some degree of uncertainty when making a choice, but only by identifying and, as much as practical, quantifying the risks can you mitigate them. Make your decision and communicate it to everyone involved. Implement the decision and measure your progress. Finally, if new information comes to light, be willing to change direction. Here's an example of a simple decision whether to do an extra credit report in one of your classes. As you can see, there are several factors that can influence your decision. I've created a fictional evaluation for a student who is already overwhelmed with work and even losing sleep over it. So even though the student would like to do the report, the difficulty and the probable negative impact on their other assignments and even extracurricular activities would make doing the report a poor decision. Of course, some of you may have a difficult time saying no. You're not alone, as this is a very common phenomenon. It might be because you judge yourself harshly or are afraid to disappoint your teacher, parent, or boss. But it's important to develop a healthy work-life balance while you're young so you don't burn out and become ill. Later in life, you'll notice that leaders in society who never say no at work often end up regretting the other aspects of their life they neglected. So now I'd like to share a decision matrix that many of my family, friends, students, and business clients have successfully used to make some very difficult life decisions. It has worked for my wife and I in helping us make the decision to move to the island 18 years ago, and when I took the leap to start my own consulting business. Let's take a closer look at how this decision matrix can be used, in this case, to select the best college for you to attend. Or, for those of you who have already submitted your applications, which college offer you might accept. Keep in mind, this decision matrix format can be used for any complex decision, including which job to take, which career to pursue, or which trip would be the least risky during this pandemic. The selection criteria are in column 1, which should be specific to your situation. These are just some examples. The second pink column ranks how important each criteria is to your decision. I'm using a 1 to 5 scale for this matrix, but you can use any numerical scale. In the next green column for the first alternative, indicate how well that alternative meets the criteria in column 1. This is your subjective and objective opinion based on any knowledge you have collected. Next, multiply these results by the importance in column 2 and enter the number in the gray column. This is done automatically in my Excel spreadsheet table. This is the weighted score. Repeat these last 2 steps for each alternative. Finally, total the 3 alternatives' second columns at the bottom. So what conclusion can we reach about these results? It would appear, based on the totals, that college option 3, and to a lesser degree option 1, most closely match the selection criteria. And college option 2 should perhaps be eliminated as a viable option. You can then look at the lowest scores that I've highlighted in red to gain further insight, or even adjust the scores. I've found that an interesting exercise is to have 1 or 2 other people who know you well to also fill out the matrix to see how their impressions compare to your own. Your teacher has blank copies of a college decision matrix and as an Excel spreadsheet, which you can easily use to add more columns for additional alternatives. Please note that the purpose of this decision process isn't to blindly follow the results, but rather to help take some of the emotions out of the decision and add discipline to your decision-making process. In other words, making it as objective and well thought out as possible. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to share this with you. As young people, I'd like to encourage you to study hard, read books, foster hope, find courage, Act with sincerity and persevere against hardship. It has been my experience that as long as you never give up, you'll learn from your struggles and find purpose in life. I wish you all a healthy and successful semester.
And that's all, folks.